Hey everyone, Adam here. Welcome back to another video. In this video here, we're going to be going over Facebook ad analysis for maximizing ROI. Now, the beauty and the magic, if you will, of digital advertising and specifically Facebook ads is you kind of almost have to have the creative side where you're super creative, coming up with ideas, concepts, copywriting, all that kind of stuff. But then you also have to marry that with the analysis and kind of understanding the data and coming up with the action plan based off the data, all that kind of stuff, and kind of have it come together. So that's what makes it so fun, so exciting, so dynamic. And yeah, this one here we're going to be covering that right side that I was kind of talking about, which is super important to get obviously both of them in harmony to get the best possible results you possibly can for your Facebook advertising. So but yeah, before we get into it, if you haven't heard of me before, my name is Adam Matthews, been in the e-commerce space for over 7 years now. We're in a company called AQM, where we partner with e-commerce brands to help them grow their revenue and do amazing work like you'll be seeing on this video here. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video. So basically where we're going to jump into a couple ad accounts right off the bat. We're going to start setting up some columns here. So I'll show you all the data that you need to have. Also setting up some custom columns, a couple little tricks to see what can be done there. We're going to be going over understanding the margins, which is super important, what metrics to look for, attribution, the true impact of your ads, and also most importantly, creating an action plan based off the data. We're not just sitting there looking at the data for fun, like what's the actions that we're going to take to improve everything and get the possible results you want. So let's dive into a couple accounts here to set up the columns. So basically these are the columns that I have set up. I'm just going to show you how to go ahead and do this. So I'm just going to click over here to performance, and then we're going to go ahead and hit customize columns on here. And then I'm just going to delete everything and just reset it all. So, well, actually, I'm not going to delete everything. I'll keep some of them here. That makes sense. So delivery, ad set name, I keep that. Bid strategy, cut that. Budget, we need that. Last significant edit, attribution setting, don't need that, don't need that. Don't need that. Quality, engagement, conversion rate, keep the amount spent, ends in schedule. So basically the way I have it set up is you want basically obviously delivery, campaign name. Budget is how much, the budget you have set. Amount spent, obviously you need to see that. And then obviously off the amount spent, how many people have reached, how many impressions do we have? Reach is the total amount of people, and then impressions, is obviously always going to be higher than reach because they will be showing the same people sometimes multiple times. Now, based off of that, we're going to go link clicks. So how many people have clicked on the ads? And then we also want to see CTR and CPC. CTR is the percentage of people that have clicked on the ad. So for easy math, if you have one person that clicks out of 100 people seeing it, you have a 1% CTR. Industry average there, I would say you want to get above a 1.5 or 2%, but it's not the end all be all. You could also, bait and switch, your target audience by, baiting them in, hooking them in when, you're not really attracting the right people, nor are you getting them in the right, headspace or something for getting over. So you could just beef up those numbers, get 3-4%, but you're not attracting the right people. So it's by far not the end all be all, something to consider. The same thing with cost per click. If you spend $100, you get 100 clicks. You divide the two, you have $1 cost per click. I would say it is good to get it under $1, but once again, very similar CTR, not the end all be all, something to consider in the funnel. Add to cart, so you want to have total and you want to have cost. These ones are mostly for the higher AOV products, but it's good to consider during the funnel of how many people, like before you actually start getting purchases in on the ads, what it's looking like. But once again, not the most important by any means. Now this is very, very important. How many purchases you got? Very, very, very important. How much the value is, right? The revenue from it, the cost per acquisition, and also total return ad spend as well. By the way, I'm unchecking these boxes because they're actually just all duplicates. So you just don't want to keep those on there. So you uncheck. And then the last two are actually a couple of custom metrics. So you'll see here, we have conversion rate and average order value from the ads. This is because obviously if you're, advertising different products, different collections, they will have different AOVs, they'll have different conversion rates. It's really good to know. Also from just looking at everything from the whole holistic point of view, it's like, you're showing the ads to people, you're seeing how many people are seeing it, you're seeing how many people are clicking, add to cart, initiate checkout, and how many people are buying, and then how much are they spending on average, and how much are they, how many people are converting on the site. Is it a site issue? Is it an ad issue? Is it, you can kind of quickly see just from bird's eye view from all the data that I have here, really, really quickly. And especially if you marry that with the attribution settings I'll talk about, you'll be very, very set. So you can see here, if I edit this, you can see here for average order value, it's purchase conversion value divided by purchases, and you just keep it in numeric format. So I'm just going to show you how to create this here for AOV. So basically what you want to do is you want to go here and you want to go purchase conversion value divided by purchases right here. So it's going to look like this. You keep it in numeric value, and then you just go like this, AOV, and then you hit create metric. I'm not going to create it because I already have it created, but that's really, really good to have there. Now, the second one, you can see here, conversion rate. If I edit this one, you'll see it's purchases, how many people have content purchase, divided by how much traffic has actually come to link clicks. And you actually change the format here to percentage for conversion rate. So purchases divided by the link clicks. So if you go here, you just want to go purchase, and then you want to divide it by link clicks. So go right here, and then instead of numeric, you want to change it to a percentage, and then you can call it CV. I just call it conversion rate, to be honest. And then yeah, you just hit create metric. Now I'm not going to create those because they're already created. So those are the last two. Now you always want to save it as a preset. I already have mine saved as a one. You can just call it whatever you want, to be honest. Call it 1, 2, and then just hit apply. I already have it done, so it's already here on 1. And there it is. So that's basically what the data looks like in terms of creating the columns, and then also creating those custom columns, which are very, very important. Now, number 2, before we start diving into what to look for, all this kind of stuff, you need to understand your margins. E-commerce is a huge numbers game. You need to understand the margins, and also a lot of brand owners don't understand the power of margins and how much of a lever it is to improve your profitability. We'll get into that in a second as well. Now, what I always like to do is cost of goods delivered rather than just cost of goods sold. So basically what that is, you want to look at your cost of goods sold, you want to look at shipping costs, and you also want to take a look at payment processing fees. Very, very minimal, but let's add it in there as well too. Now let's just say, take for example purposes, let's just do AOV of $100 as just easy example. Let's say your cost of goods sold off of that is $30. Let's just say if shipping is a little bit expensive, $15, and then payment processing fees are $3. Okay, so you add 30 plus 15 is 45 plus 3 is 48. So then you want to minus $100 minus 48 comes out to $52 is the margin, the gross profit that you make off that $100. Definitely not the best margin, but definitely can be improved. Now let's go ahead and calculate our max CPA and then our minimum return ad spend that we need to hit. So max CPA, very simple, is obviously $52 because obviously if your margin, your gross margin off that, this is basically the maximum that you can spend on the front end to acquire a customer. Very, very, very important to know. If you ever watch Shark Tank, they'll often ask, what were your sales? Oh, if you're doing advertising, how much are you spending on that? What's your cost per acquisition? It's always a big one. It's like, what's the cost per acquisition? It's a very, very big one. And some companies will even buy customers. They'll literally, say for instance, cost per acquisition is 52. They'll sometimes just buy customers. They'll literally spend more than that to acquire customers. Or if you look at huge companies like Netflix, the average, the subscription cost is, $15 a month, but then their LTV, I think it's like 3,000 or 4,000, probably even more actually, which is insane. So they obviously can spend more than $15 to acquire the customers. So, but I would recommend always in e-commerce, to be profitable on the front end. It just always makes sense. We have a client that's actually raising $5 million soon, but even me talking to her, I'm just like, we still need to have a plan set where we are still acquiring customers profitably on the front end, no matter what. I don't care how much money you have. It just always makes sense to do it on the front end, and then you want to make even more profit on the back end through retention, all that kind of stuff. And then also min return ad spend. So this is basically calculated 1 divided by your gross margin percentage. Okay, so now off of this, the 52 divided by 100 is 52%. So now you just take 1 divided by 0.52, which is a 1.92 min ROAS. Now check this, a little cool math. Let's say your gross margin percentage is 80%, which is really, really, really good. Now watch what happens here. So that would basically mean your cost of goods sold, shipping, and payment processing fees comes into under $20 or at $20, right? Off that $100. Now watch this. If you go 1 divided by 0.8, your actual, your min return ad spend actually drops all the way to 1.2. So you could be spending, $1,000, you can be spending 10 grand a day, be bringing back 15 grand a day and still have that room of profitability without those margins. So it's just such a massive difference. One really cool stat too, if you take your margin from 50% and bump it up to 70%, it's actually not a 20% increase in profitability. It's actually a double up. And same thing with 80 to 90%. So it's really like a compounding thing. Margin is very important. Now, you might be asking how to improve your margin. There's literally only two ways. There's either raise price or you decrease costs, or you do a combination of both. So always looking at what to do with, price testing, all that kind of stuff, lowering costs or, payment, different payment options with your basically company that's dealing with your cost of goods sold and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, number 3, what metrics to look for? Okay, so what metrics to prioritize while making decisions, and what are those industry averages? Now, basically, like I was saying, when looking at all this, you want to obviously have all this data, but really, realistically, the most important, if I were to sum it down into just 3 metrics, I would just say 1 is your purchases, because you want to be looking at data with enough purchases, which is what you want. Then you also, number 2 is you want to see your cost per purchase, your cost per acquisition. Are we acquiring customers under that CPA level that we just spoke about? So for easy math on this one here, we were talking about a max CPA of 52. So in this case, CPA is 47. So we're under there. We're good, but we're not too good. But this is obviously a different example. Their, average order value is 194, ROAS of 4.14. We're looking pretty good here. Their margins are even better than 50%. So we're looking really good, really healthy. And then the other one here is the return ad spend. So what does that look like? You know what I mean? So in this case, the min return ad spend is 1.92. So this one here, you can see is a 4.14 we're averaging. So those are the main things. You do want to consider the rest of the stuff earlier in the funnel. But at the end of the day, they are not as important. They're more so things to just kind of know and take a look at as you're kind of just taking a look at everything from a bird's eye view. Basically, CPM is really good to know. The seasonality changes over time. November, CPM will shoot up. And different industries have different CPMs. So that's always something to know if you're targeting different niches for your brand. Some of them might have a better CPM than others. Now, another thing to note with CPM too as well is if you're telling the platform such as Meta that you want to be targeting and you want people who are people who actually convert, the buyers, the most valuable users on the platform, which is only like 10-20% of the user base, right? Because obviously majority of people don't buy on the free platform. And you're basically telling them, hey, we want to purchase this. We want to be targeting those kind of users. And you're not doing a good job of giving them an amazing user experience and they're not buying at a good clip, then they'll slowly start charging you more and more. So that's why it's incredibly important that when you're learning ads or, hiring someone to do it, is that you actually are, you're doing a good job, because they will charge you more and more and it just becomes unfeasible. So they're not going to just ban you from the platform, but they're just going to suddenly just shadow ban you, if you will, just by doing that. Because at the end of the day, it's a business. Like, all they care about is the users. They do not care about you as the advertiser. They care more about the users, and they want to give them an amazing experience. So they do not care about the advertiser's job. They have to figure it out, and you have to give them an amazing experience, both on and off the platform. And they track everything, so they know what's up. And then reaching user impressions, and then obviously the link clicks. So this is a really good example here where you can see with CTR here is at 3.13, so which is obviously significantly higher than the average of 1.23. But when we scroll over here to the right side, you can see the cost per acquisition is actually higher than all of these other 3 campaigns. Interesting to note. And you can see the return ad spend is actually less than all 3 of these other campaigns. Interesting to see as well too, because that's why it's not the end all be all. It's something to consider, but like I was saying, you can obviously bait and switch, and it's just something to consider earlier in the funnel. Definitely not the end all be all. At this point, the add to cart and initiate checkouts just don't matter. It's more so earlier on when you first launch an ad, especially at a higher AOV, 150, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 AOV. Definitely something to consider if you don't have purchases yet on an ad within a couple days. But at the end of the day, purchases, cost per acquisition, and return ad spend is king. Okay, it's really at the end of the day, you cannot be making decisions on add to carts and initiate check. Fundamentally, it's just not the right way to go about analyzing the data. In terms of industry averages, cost per acquisition, I say it obviously ranges on AOV. at the lower AOV, 50, 60, $75, give or take AOV spots, I would say cost per acquisition probably sits around $15, $20. The higher AOV spots, 150, 200, 300, 400, can sit around 30, 40, 50, $60. So it really ranges. In terms of return ad spend, I'd say we average around a 3.25, 3.5-ish X return ad spend. Obviously, you can see here we're at a 4.14. This one here, we're at an 8.92, but I'll get into that one in a second. But yeah, I would say it obviously really, really ranges. You just want to make sure, just knowing your math and just make sure your unit economics make sense for your brand or your client's brand, etc. Attribution. So the true impact of your ads. This one's a really, really important one. A lot of people overlook this. Obviously, there's ways you can use software to do it. At the end of the day, I just have a hard time believing that software can track better than Meta itself. That's just my belief. At the end of the day, we're talking about a platform that has been around for over 2 decades. They do, of course, want to give, they want to make sure their impact is shown. So advertisers spend more on the platform. So this is why you need to take the data with a grain of salt. But you also need to look at the metrics through here. So let me show you a couple really good examples. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 examples here, and this will really open your eyes to the data. So what you want to do is you want to take a look and you want to compare attribution settings, and you want to click on 1-day view, 1-day click, and 7-day click. Okay, and then once you do that, you want to scroll over to I mostly check it for revenue, honestly. And so what you'll notice, so 1-day view is basically people who have seen the ad and then within 24 hours have bought, okay? And then 1-day click is when they've actually clicked on an ad and within 24 hours have bought. And then 7-day click is when they've clicked on an ad and within 7 days they've bought. Now, what you want to look for is you want to see majority click revenue compared to view revenue. Because what we notice with some brands that have very, very good retention, or they drive traffic in another sense, or with other channels, or they have a massive organic presence, stuff like that, it's going to be much higher view through attribution, which isn't a true impact from the ads. So in this case, the impact of the ads is very, very solid. It's actually, through what we've done with the advertising, it's much more click oriented. So you can see here 11,700 plus, 13,100. That's about almost $25,000. And then, out of the 30 grand. So it's a majority, like 75%. Is all click. Now I'll show you another example. By the way, to get out of this, just go compare attribution settings, clear all, and hit apply. Okay. And then if we go over here, I'll show you another example. So if we go here for another client ad account, compare attribution settings, 1-day view, 1-day click, and 7-day click. Scroll over here. This is the first month that we're starting with them, and you can see here, 5,598 is actually coming from 1-day view. Because you might take a look at this if I reset it out. And I go clear all, you might take a look at this and be like, and you might see the data here and you're like, oh my God, a 9.5x, a 7.41 cost per acquisition. Like, we should be just scaling this to the moon. Well, hold on. That's why you need to go back and you need to check. And you're like, with that 9.5, is it really a 9.5? It's actually really not really a 9.5, but that's okay. It's, obviously there's always room to improve here. So basically so you can see here, out of the 1-day view, $5,500 is coming from that. That's a big chunk out of the 2,100 plus 3,400. That's about 5,400. So you can see here, it's actually slightly majority, like 55% is coming from view through. So then if you scroll over here to the ROAS, you can see your 5.9x of the ROAS is view, and then 2.23 plus the 3.6, which, comes out to 5 point something. So about half. So give or take about half or slightly less than half is actually from the true impact of the ads. So you really want to note that even though our return on ad spend is just juiced up right now, it's not a true realistic way of looking at the ads. You would not want to scale this too crazy. It's probably more so realistic to see it at like a 4.5 or 5x or so. And same thing with the cost per acquisition is probably closer to $14, $15 range. Okay. So very, very important to note that, especially if you have traffic coming from other ways. And it really important to know how much you can scale. Now, of course, can we raise that budget with that 5x one, this one right here? Of course we can. We can definitely raise the budget on this, but be careful in scaling it. If this starts dropping really, really heavily, you definitely want to make sure you're, just keeping an eye on that. Okay, most important, last thing here is creating an action plan based on the data. The most important, what are we going to do based off this data? So what I always take a look at with the ads is, taking a look and based off the data here, if we're getting, a really, really good cost per click, all that kind of stuff, and you're going over here and you're seeing, a subpar AOV, I'd say anything less than $50 is definitely something that needs to be improved. And then the conversion rate, anything less than like 2%, definitely can be improved as well. So let's just say, for example, you're driving traffic really, really well, but then you're not happy with the cost per acquisition and return ad spend. And AOV and conversion rate is definitely like subpar, less than 2%, and then AOV is like less than $50. Then it is something that to consider to work on the website, as an example. So the way I kind of look at it is like really kind of looking at what to optimize. You can take a look at the ads, the website, the content, the offers. Taking a look at what can we do to improve the conversion rate? What can we do to improve the AOV? I'll make some, more videos on this. Definitely something to consider. With the ads, now let's just say we're getting a decent cost per acquisition, getting a decent return on ad spend, but the cost per click, CTR is not the best. Maybe there's ways that we can do, and we should always be doing this to get better ads. Okay. And this should be always one of the main focuses, of course, but always taking a look at everything. What new angles and concepts can we launch? What ads are performing best? What can we create iterations or variations on? How can we leverage our content even better to create amazing ads? How can we splice together different videos, different photos? How can we create like a slideshow of different photos, all that kind of stuff? What products are performing best? You know what I mean? Taking a look at, your product suite. It's always the 80-20 rule. And it's something really, really important to know. Then with the website is like you're driving traffic really, really well, but it's just like, you're not converting people well enough, or there's ways to, maybe you're getting a 3 or 4x and things are looking really good, but it's just as you're scaling, you're noticing that the conversion rate, is really, really dropping. And the thing is, as you scale out, it reaches colder and colder audiences. So that's why you really need to make sure your conversion rate is just, your messaging, your site's really dialed in. It's just airtight, because it just, as you scale up, it just needs to be even better and better, because you're reaching colder and colder audiences as you scale up. And same thing with improving AOV as well. But really the king metric is your revenue per session. Because the thing is, you could do different things to bump your conversion rate up, but if your AOV drops in half, well, maybe that's actually dropping your revenue per session. So you want to take a look at that as well too. So that's another thing to consider. I'll make another video on that. It's kind of an in-depth topic. And then your content, what content do we have available? What new content inspiration can we create? Sourcing creators, all that sort of stuff. Like, how can we create more content? How we can work with, athletes, ambassadors? How can we, talk to our customers and get content from them? How can we, as, one of the founders, create content? How can we get, there's just so many different ways. Content is king nowadays. And that's something really, really to consider. And that just fuels the ads. It fuels the website. It fuels retention. It fuels organic, fuels everything. So it's just it's just very, very important. And lastly, offers as well too. What offers can we run to acquire customers more profitably? It's something that a lot of people don't consider. Can you do some sort of coupon code for new customers? Can you do some sort of offer for new customers where if they buy something, then they get a free gift, or they get a free product, which is high margin, high value, that can just work into the unit economics that you can work out. Maybe you have to come back to here and your CPA, maybe it has to be actually even lower, or the minute return ad spend has to be a little bit higher, but you're also acquiring customers for a lot cheaper and all that sort of stuff. I'll make another video on offers as well. That's definitely something to really consider. But yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. Lot to cover. Went through that pretty quickly. Let me know if there's any questions. Drop those down below. And also, if you are, kind of struggling with your advertising, struggling with, growing your brand, and you're doing at least, $10,000, $20,000 a month with your brand, there's gonna be a first link in the description. I don't care if you click on it or not, but if you do, it will take you over to a video on our site. We're just gonna go through our service and how we can potentially help you out and take your brand to the next level. So that'll be the first link in the description. But other than that, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.